Chapter 10. The Birth of Galahad. Sir Lancelot woke one morning at Camelot feeling the strangest sensation. He was being tugged by some invisible force, and he heard voices calling him, telling him to put on his armour and ride out. Lancelot had no intention of riding out that day. Snow lay deep on the ground, and icicles hung from the trees. There was no adventure to be had burying himself in snow. Yet whatever force it was too strong even for Lancelot. He soon found himself riding out of Camelot. He journeyed deep into the wild forest, the snow getting deeper and deeper all the time. The forest gave way to mountains, and Lancelot knew he was lost. He was so cold he wanted to stop and light a fire, but still he was led higher and higher into the mountains. Night fell, and his horse carried him onwards and upwards. As dawn broke, he looked up through his half-frozen eyes and saw two huge castles in the distance. One stood on a high mountain peak, and the other on a cliff overlooking the sea. Soon he clattered over a wooden bridge and came into a tiny village. He saw a group of villagers standing by a hut. They cried out when they saw him, "Sir Lancelot, welcome!" Lancelot had no idea how they knew him, because he was sure he had been drawn to a foreign land. "We have waited a long time for you," said one of the villagers. "There is something you must do for us." Lancelot said he would be happy to help them, but first he wanted to know where he was. "This is the land of Corbin," said the villager. "Yonder, on the mountain top, stands the Castle of Danger, the Devil's Lair. And not an arrow's flight away, standing on the sea cliff, is Castle Carbonek. It is the home of King Pelles, a man of God." Lancelot asked what he had to do. A woman approached and said that Morgan Le Fay had been jealous of her daughter's beauty and had thrown her into the dungeon in the Castle of Danger. "And there," said the woman, "they boil her every day in a cauldron." Lancelot was horrified, and without hesitating galloped up to the castle. As if by magic, the drawbridge swung down and the gates opened. Lancelot rode in and found the castle deserted. He dismounted and went down to the dungeons. He heard the damsel's despairing cries from behind a door. Lancelot struck off the bolts with a blow from his sword. The door swung open. He was almost knocked off his feet by a blast of heat which rushed from the prison cell. Then he saw the damsel chained inside the cauldron. It did not take Lancelot long to free her, and he covered her with his cloak. "Blessed Sir Lancelot," she cried. "Morgan Le Fay said that only the bravest knight of all would dare to rescue me." Lancelot knew that Morgan was not to be trusted, and wondered whether he had been led into a trap. He asked the damsel who was in the castle. "Nobody, Sir Lancelot," she answered. "Morgan Le Fay and her evil queens left this morning, on the devil's business, no doubt." "Then we must be gone before she returns," said Lancelot. They hurried up into the daylight again. Lancelot, with the damsel sitting behind him, rode out of the castle. Lancelot noticed a large tombstone by the castle gate, and stopped to read its inscription. "A leopard of king's blood will slay the dragon inside this tomb, and then he will father a lion among men, a knight who will become the most Christian in the land." "What can this mean?" asked Lancelot. "King Ban was your father, therefore you are of a king's blood," said the damsel. "So it is doubtless that you are the leopard. The lion is the son you shall have one day." Lancelot was puzzled by what she said. How did she know so much about him? He could feel enchantment in the air. He got off his horse and heaved at the great stone covering the tomb. He had only moved it a few inches when a dragon spitting fire and brimstone burst out. It spat a column of fire at Lancelot, but he managed to protect himself from the fiery attack with his shield. Then he leapt onto its long neck, his sword at the ready. With one blow he took off the monster's head. "The first part of this magic is finished," said the damsel. "You have proved that you are the one King Pelles is waiting for." Lancelot heard her words, but when he turned around, the damsel was nowhere to be seen. The cloak he had lent the damsel now lay on the ground. Just then an old lady appeared from behind the tomb. "Stand where you are," cried Lancelot, raising his sword. "Don't try your magic on me." "You have nothing to fear from me," said the woman. "They call me Dame Brisson, an enchantress indeed, but for good, not evil. Come with me." Lancelot was powerless to resist. He followed Dame Brisson all the way from the Castle of Danger to Castle Carbonek. King Pelles was waiting for him. The king, a kindly and friendly-faced man, gave Lancelot a warm welcome and invited him to share a feast that night. Elaine, the king's beautiful daughter, joined them at the table. Lancelot had never tasted such good food or drunk such fine wine. Later that night, Dame Brisson took Lancelot and showed where he could sleep. So many strange things had happened that day that Lancelot wanted to stay awake and watch out for danger. But Dame Brisson had made sure he wouldn't with a potion mixed into the wine. Lancelot immediately fell into a deep sleep. He awoke the next morning to see Elaine, the king's daughter, in his room. She spoke to him in a loving voice. "We have been brought together by magic to fulfill a great prophecy. In time, I will give birth to your son, and he shall be called Galahad. He will sit beside you at the round table." Lancelot was astonished at her words. He could not understand what had happened during the night. "This place is enchanted. I will have no more of it." Lancelot raced from the room, found his horse, and galloped away. He crossed the bridge in the village and took the road for Camelot. No more snow had fallen during that magical night, and he quickly retraced his own snow prints. Lancelot reached Camelot in no time at all. Months passed, and in time the baby Galahad was born to Elaine. The enchantress Dame Brisson said that someone must take the news to Camelot. Dame Brisson went quickly to work. Lancelot's nephew, Sir Bors, was riding close by Castle Carbonek, and he was soon enticed to the castle gate. He was taken to see the child. "'Tis strange," said Sir Bors, "but he has Lancelot's eyes." "It is true," said Elaine. "Galahad is our child. Nacien, the holy hermit, prophesied that it should happen." An old man entered the room at that moment. It was Nacien. He looked as old as the hills and shuffled over to speak to Sir Bors. "Elaine speaks the truth," he said. "Mark you well, Sir Bors. This child will take his place at King Arthur's round table." "And where shall he sit?" asked Sir Bors. "There is but one place left, and that is the Siege Perilous. Merlin said that only the most Christian knight could take that place." "Sir Galahad will rightly claim that seat when he is 15 years old," said Nacien. "But for now, he will be taken from here and brought up in a nunnery. I will bring him to Camelot when the time is right." That night, Nacien appeared in a dream to Sir Bors and told him the story of Joseph of Arimathea, the disciple who took Jesus' body and laid it in a tomb. "Remember," echoed Nacien's voice, "remember how Joseph brought Christianity to this land, and how he brought with him the Holy Grail, the cup which Jesus drank from at the Last Supper. Is that not the cup which every knight would dearly love to drink from?" Sir Bors heard his own voice answering, "If we could, we would die happy men." Nacien continued, "Few of King Arthur's knights will ever see it, let alone drink from it. But Galahad will show all the other knights what a true Christian is. He will find the Holy Grail." When Sir Bors awoke, he did not know what to make of all he had seen and heard in his dreams. He hurried back to Camelot and told the court what had happened. When Queen Guinevere heard about the birth of Galahad, she was furious. She summoned Lancelot. "O faithless knight," she said, "have I not loved you dearly since you came to this court? Have you not always worn my colours in battle? How could you love another? You shall be banished from Camelot forever." Lancelot was horrified. He pleaded with the queen, trying to explain how he had been enchanted by powerful magic. "I was powerless to do anything," but the queen had made up her mind. "Begone," she said. It was too much for Lancelot, who had loved Guinevere since he first set eyes on her. He had remained faithful to both the queen and King Arthur for many years, and he now was being banished because of Dame Brissen's wily magic. The shame was too much for him. He let out the cry of a madman, shrieking and groaning in a terrible manner. He threw off his armour and, dressed only in a shirt and breeches, leapt out of the window, shouting wildly and completely out of his wits. He ran off into the forest.